So let us talk about what is culture in international pay system. So when we said culture, it is a human mental programming which involves personality, culture, and human nature. So these are the characteristics of human mental programming which we call a culture. Culture is an acquired knowledge that people use to interpret experience and generate social behavior. It is also rooted in the values, beliefs, and assumptions shared in common by the group of people. It also influenced how information is being processed. Next is the culture and managing international pay. It is the assumption that pay systems must be designed to fit different national cultures. It's based on the beliefs that most of a country's inhabitants share a national character. The job of a global manager is to search whose influence is assumed to be critical in managing international pay systems. Next, we have the Hofstede's cultural dimensions, and we have 5, and these are power distance, uncertainty avoidance, individualism and collectivism, masculinity and femininity, and the long-term short-term orientation. Power distance considered extent to which inequality and power are tolerated. It was viewed in the viewpoint of the followers. High power, cultures accepts inequality and bureaucracy. Low power, cultures encourages organizational structure. Next is the individualism versus collectivism. It considers the degree to which societies are integrated into groups and perceived obligations and independence of groups. Next is Uncertainty Avoidance Index. It considers the extent to which uncertainty and ambiguity are tolerated. Considers how unknown situation and unexpected events are dealt with. Next, we have masculinity and femininity. It referred as tough and gendered or considers as the preference of society for achievement. Lastly is the long-term and short-term orientation. It considers the extent to which the society views its time or horizon. Long-term orientation focuses on the future and involves delaying short-term success or gratification, while the short-term orientation focuses the near future involves delivering short-term success or gratification.
Learning objectives. Realizing that studying international compensation enhances their understanding of compensation within their own country. 2. Understand how changes in political and economic conditions affect pay in every country. 3. Recognize the danger of making generalizations about system in a country. And lastly, discuss how compensation in every country must deal with the objectives of efficiency, fairness, and compliance. Now, understanding international compensation begins with recognizing variations of differences and similarities and figuring out is moneying variations. Moneying variations, how people get paid around the world depends on differences and similarities in the following general factors. Number one is economic, next is institutional, next is organizational, and lastly is employee.
The Global Guide, the Social Contract, Social Contracts and Pay Setting, Trade Unions and Employee Involvement. Europe remains highly unionized. Asia is less heavily unionized. In some countries, workers' pay is set by collective agreements even though the workers may not be union members. In addition to having higher rates of unionization, Belgium and Germany require the establishment of worker councils that must be involved in any changes to a pay plan. Ownership and financial market. Ownership and financing of companies differ widely around the world. These differences are important to international pay. So, what are the types? First is the stock option. Second, government owned. Third, bank owned. And last, multi level ownership. Managerial autonomy. Under managerial autonomy, first is the level of centralization, second, regulations, and last, corporate policy. Comparing cost. Comparing cost can be very misleading even if wage rates appear the same expenses for healthcare, living cost, and other employer provided allowances. Outside the US, many nations offers some form of national healthcare organization may pay for it indirectly. It include labor cost and productivity, standard of living cost of living, and purchasing power. Comparing systems. We have made the point that pay systems differ around the globe and that the differences relate to various in economic pressures, sociopolitical institution, and the diversity of organization and employees. The caution about stereotyping raised earlier applied as well. Even in nations described by some of homogeneous, pay system differ from business to business. Expatriates pay. Under this, first is the expats. Expats is the individuals whose citizenship is that of employers based country. Second is the third country nationals or TCNs. It is the individuals whose citizenship is neither employers based country nor location of subsidiary. Third, local country nationals or LCNs. It is the individuals who are citizens of country in which subsidiary is located. Elements of expatriate compensations. Under this is the salary, taxes, housing, allowances, and premiums. Common allowances in expatriate pay. First is the financial allowances. Second, social adjustment assistance. Last, family support. Borderless world, borderless pay. Corporations attempting to become globally integrated enterprises are created cadres of globalists. Managers who operate anywhere in the world in a borderless manner. To support a global flow of ideas and people, companies are also designing borderless or at least regionalized pay system. Testing ground for this approach, European Union. Conclusion. Studying employee compensation only in your neighborhood, city, or county is like being a horse with blinders. Removing the blinders by adopting an international perspective deepens your understanding of local issues. Anyone interested in compensation must adopt a worldwide perspective. The globalization of businesses, financial markets, trade agreements, and even labor markets is affecting every workplace and every employment relationship. And employee compensation, so central to the workplace, is embedded in the different political socioeconomic arrangements found around the world.